This video needs absolutely no intro. Alright, jumping back into the story, Deku is literally face to face with the Nomu, looking at the Nomu thinking to himself, if I can defeat this thing, if I can defeat these villains, then I can show father that he was wrong about Todoroki. I can be the strongest. And so immediately, Izuku like fires up. He has like a flame aura literally bursting off of him as he looks towards the Nomu and he sees that Aizawa is right there by the Nomu. Immediately, Deku would straight shoot flames at the Nomu and Aizawa would kind of like what's the word I'm looking for? He would kind of like bend down, like trying not to get burnt, considering that flames are literally shooting right at him. But the second that the flames make contact with him, nothing happens. In fact, it's like he literally just gets moved. Like he gets sent flying back a bit, but safely. I don't know how to explain it. Like he literally gets like sent flying, but he lands on flames that catch him, where it's kind of like clouds, you know what I mean? But with that, Deku then would rush at the direction of the Nomu, since he would have like trapped him in like a prison of flames, and the Nomu would like roar, like causing a loud like screech effect to go off as it like lets out like its own power, and like the flames would disperse everywhere. But Izuku would have like this like huge cocky smile on his face as he would blitz in at it, and he would shoot a flaming fist straight through the stomach of the Nomu as he would smirk, thinking to himself, checkmate. But suddenly the Nomu would straight punch him in the face, sending him flying back as it would like a couple of teeth would get knocked in, and Deku would be feeling that punch like really badly. And it wasn't even that strong considering that Aizawa was using his quirk nullification on it, but if not for that, it would have been straight raps for Deku. In that moment, Deku would land on the ground and realize that that thing is no joke. But not only that, Izuku is livid. Like he is beyond angry at this point, and he would rush back in at the Nomu as flames would be like shooting off of his face. And what Izuku wouldn't notice in this moment is that the flames are actually healing him, similar to what Marco's flames do in One Piece. And as Izuku's like flying in with these wings, Izuku in this moment would then like just literally straight in a radius of like 5 feet would just boom, like let out flames that are so unbelievably hot that they would actually turn blue, just like Dabi's hot, just like Dabi's flames, right? And like the Nomu would begin screeching like it's in pain, and it grabs onto Deku like trying to like hurt him or kill him, since like it doesn't have that much longer left, and it begins like squeezing Deku. And as the Nomu is squeezing Deku, Deku's like screeching in pain, but he would be pushing his flames harder and harder and harder, making the flames hotter as eventually they would get darker blue. And eventually they would literally just start getting darker and darker and darker until it turns into a pitch black flame where the Nomu would just be incinerated. Like there is nothing left. That regeneration ability that the Nomu has wasn't doing anything. There was nothing left of it, mind you. And Izuku would then like just sit there as he falls onto one knee and like coughs out some blood, seeing as like the Nomu was like literally crushing him, you know what I mean? Like Gohan style. You know what you guys remember what Cell did to Gohan in the Cell games? Literally that, or even what Toppo did to Goku in the Tournament of Power, where he like squeezed him for the exhibition, right? That's exactly what was happening. Then Izuku would turn towards the direction of Shigaraki, who would be terrified. Mind you, Deku just straight up took out the Nomu, but it would be at this moment that as Izuku was about to go in and like just like absolutely full send it, All Might would arrive, and he would then end up basically telling Izuku thank you for helping him, as he would appear in front of Shigaraki, and then he would tell him he's coming with them, as Shigaraki would then almost be grabbed by All Might. But that's suddenly when Kurogiri would teleport Shigaraki out of there, as well as himself, and Izuku would just be like, well, no, actually I think Izuku would get mad, honestly. He would turn to All Might and say, what are you doing? You're so fast and you let him get away? And All Might would look at him and say, it's okay, Izuku, right now we have to worry about your students. And Deku would just look at All Might angrily like, no, you let him get away, as he would just fly off with his wings and rush over towards the direction of more villains, as shooting flames at them and like burning them, giving them like straight 3rd, 4th degree burns, right? Since he's mad, he's letting off some steam. And after helping save everybody else who was left, Izuku would then be told by UA, or not told by UA, but told by Endeavor when he's home, that he's not going to be going to class for about a week, considering everything that happened at that event. As Endeavor would go on to ask Deku what happened, if what he heard was really true, if he took out some crazy monster. And Deku would look at him and say, yeah, I did. what about it? As Endeavor would look at Izuku and say, I didn't think you had it in you, kid. Get stronger. Maybe I'll train you. As it'd be in this moment that Izuku, like after hearing that, would glare at Endeavor, but deep down, he was so happy at hearing that notion. And for the following week, Izuku would train even harder than he had ever done before, realizing one thing during that week. He had no injuries. Like, for some reason, it was like his flames had healed him. And Izuku barely took note of that, like in that moment after when Endeavor said that. He's like, all right, well, first I have to heal and then I can, until he realized like my ribs are no longer cracked. My jaw is no longer dislocated. The blood that I like was spitting out no longer hurts. Like, what happened? And Izuku starts realizing like, I have healing flames just like Marco, right? And the reason that I'm doing that is because I wasn't thinking of actually giving Izuku healing flames, but somebody commented in the comments that Izuku's like fighting style was so similar to Marco from One Piece, and I barely ended up realizing that at the end. Like, Deku has wings and flames that don't burn, so it would be a literal perfect power up to give Deku that ability. So yeah, we're just gonna roll with it. And over the course of the week, Izuku would get actually really decent at using that like healing quirk flame ability, as eventually we would get to the UA Sports Festival, right? And it would be here that we would get events like the race, which obviously, like with Izuku having an ability like creating wings that can help him literally fly, he is of course going to be in the top 3. I don't think that I want Izuku to win this just because, like, yes, he's fast, but I don't want him to just absolutely destroy Todoroki and everything. I think that what I want to happen is, like, as everything was starting, Izuku was doing so good and Bakugo started catching up and Todoroki was like a bit behind them both, and Deku and Bakugo started like fighting in the air at the last second, like trying to like one up the other. But in the midst of that, Todoroki would pass the both of them and would actually end up getting the first place headband, meaning that during the cavalry battle, when Deku would assemble his team, he would not have the same problem that he would get in the original of having the 1 million point headband. Not only that, but this time around, Deku's team is actually going to be slightly different. This time around, Deku's going to be having Jiro with him. He's also going to be having, not Meihatsume for sure. I think Tokiyami is definitely one that he could definitely go after. And then he could also maybe get with the, I don't even know honestly, but Deku, like this like little cavalry section doesn't really matter in the grand scheme of things, like whether he wins or doesn't. Let's just say that he wins, but I am gonna leave you guys with this. Obviously, Deku in the midst of the cavalry battle would try to go after Todoroki, but midway through, I think that what I want to happen is like Deku's like trying to go after the 1 million point headband, like trying to like defeat his brother, but realizing that there's probably gonna be 1v1 battles, he thinks, why would I defeat him here if I could humiliate him publicly? So right as he was literally inches away from grabbing the headband, he would straight up just give it back. Like he had grabbed the headband and then he would just toss it back at Todoroki saying, this is too easy of a victory. This doesn't feel earned. As Todoroki would just look at him like stunned, like what? And then Izuku would just go after other people, like getting different headbands, taking out other opponents that definitely would have given him problems. One of them actually being the group that Shinso was in. Deku was not playing no games. He wasn't hearing anything that anyone was saying, and he just straight shot flames at Shinso's team, meaning that they all just got like knocked off the cavalry thing, and Shinso's team was eliminated because of that. He would grab their headband, and eventually Izuku would move on, having second place because he ended up taking that many headbands, you know? And eventually after this would happen, we would get Deku going up against some fodder kid from class 1B that has the ability to, like, I don't know, like solidify air, I guess. Like that's the guy who he's going to be going up against. And Izuku's just like, he's like not having it. So as soon as the battle would start, I definitely want to have like a little bit of a cool scene happen where Deku, picture it like this. I want to set everything up perfectly in your guys' minds. So Deku at this moment would be like in the waiting room, right? And he's just like, okay, like everything's going good so far. I just need to make it ahead and defeat Todoroki and show father that I'm more worthy of training, right? And Deku in this moment is just like psyching himself up. I can definitely see a scene playing out where Todoroki like thanks Deku for like him giving him the headband back and not like eliminating him, and Deku would say sure, like he's acting just really nice to him. Like I would definitely like to have a scene like that in the video. And then after that, like he makes his way outside, and Deku, like when he's in the middle of the first battle of the 1v1 battles, the opponent that he would actually end up facing up against would look at Deku and he would say, let's have a good match. And Deku is like kind of zoned out, just thinking about how badly he's gonna destroy Todoroki. So as soon as the proctor would say Hajime, aka Midnight, the dude with the ability to solidify air would create like an air prison around Izuku, and Izuku would look, realize what's going on, and immediately with white flames he would just shatter the air as he would walk, and like there would be like a little bit of smoke like covering everything, and white flames would just be bursting everywhere as Izuku would shoot like a hand of white flames, not like a massive one but like a skinny one that would grab the neck of the kid as he would like throw him up into the air. And Izuku, like not even like he's not even doing anything, a literal baseball bat made out of flames would appear, and the flames would actually be red this time. It would appear and smack the kid into the grass as the kid would go flying into it, and Izuku would just walk off saying nothing. As Endeavor watching this from the stands would be like, I've never been able to do anything like that. Like where did he learn that? You know what I mean? Like his fire control is way beyond even mine. You know what I mean? And so after this, we would then get Izuku going up against his next opponent, which is actually going to be Todoroki. Or no, I don't want him to go up against Todoroki first. I want him to go up against yeah, this time around he doesn't go up against Shinso. Let's say that he goes up against Kirishima, right? Let's say that he goes up against Kirishima and Bakugo goes up against Todoroki. Now, in the original, I think that Bakugo definitely would have given Todoroki a run for his money if Todoroki had been like trying fully. But since Todoroki still is like against using his flames, but this time he is going to be trying, it would be a high difficulty battle for Todoroki. But ultimately, I can definitely see Todoroki winning just because he wants to fight his brother in the finals and maybe get it out of both of their systems, you know? And so Todoroki would win that battle, and Izuku would easily destroy Kirishima. I mean, come on now. Kirishima is a close range fighter. Deku has flames. He can fight him from long range. He can literally fly into the sky and just push him off with flames, and Todoroki won't be able to do a thing about it. And honestly, I think that's what Deku's gonna do, because he kind of likes Kirishima in this version. Like Kirishima's never bothered him. He's actually like made him laugh a couple of times, and he's kind of cool in his opinion. So instead of Izuku like being mean, as soon as the match would begin, Izuku would create a massive just like wall of flames, and the flames would just begin getting closer and closer to Kirishima as Kirishima would run right through them, and Izuku would realize like, hey yo, like these flames are not even burning him. So he would take up to the sky and shoot like red flames at Kirishima. Kirishima would like be tanking them, and Deku would just be like, don't make me do this, as he shoots more and more and more and more flames, eventually turning them blue and sending Kirishima flying off of the stadium thing as he would lose. And eventually we would get Deku versus Todoroki. It would be here that like eventually everything would finally culminate. Endeavor's there in the stands watching both of his boys, like thinking to himself like, whoever wins is the one that I'm gonna train up. And as this is all happening, Deku would like make his way towards the stage. He's acting like super nice, and Deku's just thinking to himself like, I'm going to obliterate Todoroki. Like I'm literally gonna decimate him. And Todoroki would just be looking at his brother, just saying, I guess this is, what would Todoroki even do? Like at this moment, like his character development is kind of whack. Like would he even say anything? He would just look at his brother and say, he would just look at his brother Deku and be like, let's settle this here. And Izuku would look at Todoroki and say, I plan to, as immediately, Hajime. And eventually Izuku would rush it the direction of Todoroki as Todoroki shoots a giant pillar of ice at him, the same one that he would have shot at the tape boy. And Deku would instantly melt it, just being like, you kidding me? Slamming his foot on the ground, melting it instantly. As Todoroki would realize like, yo, I might need my flames. But it'd be in this moment that Izuku would get closer and closer and closer, and Todoroki would just try to like create separation between the both of them using his ice, but Deku would just literally turn it into water. Like there was just a bunch of puddles covering the floor that they were on, and Izuku would just smirk as he's getting closer and closer and closer. And eventually Todoroki would shoot flames at Izuku, but Izuku would do something that like Todoroki had never even like thought that would even happen. Like he had never even fathomed this even being a possibility. Izuku would like hold his hand out and like what he would like catch the flames, and in this moment his palms would begin to go like a weird like greenish color as he would begin to actually end up absorbing the flames into himself, and he would begin getting more and more powerful. Todoroki watching this would be like, what the? And eventually Izuku would just open his mouth, shooting a gigantic blast of flames at Todoroki, which would actually end up like burning off half of his clothes, and like he barely dodged it, which would have like straight up left him hospitalized like for weeks at least. And Todoroki in this moment would look at him being like, are you trying to kill me? And Deku would say, no, but I am trying to get close to it, as he would rush back in towards Todoroki, and Todoroki would shoot ice, like just actually going all out at this moment, like trying his best to defeat Deku, but he's just like, Deku is just hard negating him. Like everything he's doing, Deku's hard countering him. And even in the moments where Todoroki is like trying to like use flames, he's not as good of a flame user as Deku. And Deku's just like he's just running circles against Todoroki, honestly. Eventually it would all culminate and Deku shooting a gigantic like flame attack, like ball of just like energy at Todoroki, and it would just completely shoot him off of the stadium, leaving him indented in the stadium walls. Like Todoroki would get shot out flying and crash onto like the stadium like concrete, and like he would literally be embedded into it, as Todoroki would then fall onto the ground unconscious, and Endeavor, watching all this, would simply walk away just being like as it would be in this moment that Deku would then be given his first place medal. And right after this would happen, like literally right after, we would just get like a little bit of a cut in time to what happens after everything, where Endeavor just walks over towards Izuku, congratulates him, and then tells him that he's going to be putting in a request to have him train under him over the course of the next week. As Izuku would just be like, sounds good, and he would just like walk off, but like inside he was so happy. But it'd be in this moment that he would think to himself like, was it worth it? Like I did hurt Todoroki pretty bad. Like I hate him, but I don't want to kill him, you know? And Todoroki's in pretty bad shape, but Izuku's just thinking like, nah, he's had a good life to this point. Like a little pain never hurt anyone, right? Thinking like, maybe him getting beat this bad will make him stronger too. Just like having him as a goalpost to reach made me stronger. And Izuku would just like think about it like that in his head, just like kind of trying to make it make sense in his head where he doesn't feel that bad about it. But eventually we would get the day where Izuku has to pick his hero name, and let's just say that that Izuku picks the hero name, I don't know, I couldn't be bothered to think. Comment something down below in the comments and I'll pick the one that I comment and I'm like, this is fire, that's the name that we're gonna be going with. Okay, with that said, yeah, keep going. Anyways, right after this happens, we would eventually get the day where Izuku would show up at Endeavor's hero agency, and when he would walk in, he would be greeted by one of Endeavor's like agency members, which would be Burning or Flame or something, like I forgot her name, but it's just this girl with green like hair, and she has like a flame quirk as well. Izuku would walk in, and it'd be in this moment that Endeavor would look at Deku and say like, about time you got here, as he would tell him that they can begin their training. And just immediately off the bat, like Deku was not like sitting there like being like, I hate you, old man. Like no, immediately they just went into hero patrol, and Izuku was there with Endeavor watching how he handled like hero patrolling and stuff like that, how he used his flames. And they would just be out there from like the moment that Izuku got there to the moment he passes out, using their abilities to actually just save tons of people. And since this time Todoroki doesn't end up going with Endeavor, he would end up going with somebody else. Like let's say Edgeshot would want him to go to his agency, right? So Todoroki goes with Edgeshot, and Izuku would end up being with Endeavor. Eventually, at the end of everything, Endeavor would ask Izuku how he got so strong, and he would ask him if he's ready to tell him now. And Izuku would say that he trained by himself. The whole time that he was focusing on training Todoroki, Izuku would say he should have been focusing on him. He actually wanted to train. He actually wants to become the #1 hero. And Endeavor, hearing this, would say, yeah, well, I'm done wasting my time with him. We can begin training. We're now going to begin training and make sure that you become the #1 hero. And Izuku, after hearing Endeavor say that, it's like everything he ever wanted to hear was finally completed in that moment. And Izuku would just like continue training with Endeavor. Eventually, what would end up going down is we would get a call from Hosu, as I still definitely believe that Shigaraki would still end up trying to recruit Stain. Shigaraki still would end up obviously failing at it, of course. And then after all that would happen, the Nomus would still go crazy. And Endeavor and Izuku this time around, not Endeavor and Todoroki, but Endeavor and Izuku would be in Hosu City, where Endeavor would actually trust Izuku to go off on his own and handle some of the Nomus himself. So Izuku would do just that, taking a Nomu out as Endeavor was handling another one, and then one that could fly would actually begin like flying away from Deku. So he immediately would fly right after it, and right as he was about to actually take it out, he would hear a scream, which would be Ida, as he had just gotten stabbed in the back by Stain. As Izuku would immediately rush in there, and like that would have literally have just paralyzed Ida. Like I don't think you guys understand, like he literally just got paralyzed because he stabbed him in his spine, like his spinal cord, right? And so Izuku would just look at Ida and he can't move. It's not Stain's quirk, he's just paralyzed. And he's like bleeding a bit from his mouth. Izuku in this moment would look at Stain and ask him what he's done, as he would then shoot flames at the body of Ida, and Stain would say, "That's a bit cruel, don't you think? Cremating him on the spot while he was awake?" And Izuku would say, "That's not what I did." As Ida in this moment would feel himself like begin to get mobility back in his legs and stuff. And Ida would literally stand up, as Stain would look at Izuku in such confusion. And then Izuku would say, "Night, night," as he would shoot a flaming, like he would just like hold his hand out and just boom, like a gigantic amount of flames would shoot at him. And mind you, they're in an alleyway, so even if Stain tried to like jump from wall to wall to wall to wall to like evade it, he would not be fast enough to do that. Like Stain is superhuman levels of speed, but he's not fast enough to avoid point blank flames. And so Stain gets absolutely charred. And then like Stain just kind of like looks at Deku, like he gets back up and he's like, "How dare you, like no one's gonna kill me but All Might." And it'd be in this moment that he would actually freak the life out of Deku, right? Because he's like, "Yo, what? Like I literally burned this dude, like what do I have to do, kill him?" And it'd be in this moment that like Stain would rush in at Deku, and Deku would have to like just jump back as Stain would stab him. And Izuku would actually in this moment like freak out because he's like, "No, I just got stabbed." But what's it called? As he got stabbed, like Stain got even more burnt because he would shoot flames out, but at that moment Stain didn't care because he already had gotten burned, right? So Stain would be about to like lick the blade, but it would be in this moment that Ida would send like a gigantic reciprocal burst kick to Stain right in the ribs, sending him crashing into the wall, as the blade that he would have used to actually like get the blood from Deku would have went flying to the floor. And then Deku would look at Stain as he would be knocked out cold, because mind you, he got hit in the head by a reciprocal burst kick. Like nobody is just going to be getting up after that, right? And yeah, that's exactly what ends up happening. Followed by this, Ida like looks at Deku and would thank him for that. And then Deku would say, "Yeah, sure, clean everything up here. I got a Nomu I gotta take care of." As he would turn around, run, and then just like flaming wings would come out from his back, as Ida would look at Deku and think his quirk is so cool, and Deku would just fly off towards the direction of where he remembers the Nomu. In this moment, the Nomu was about to like actually like kill like this mother and her children, but Izuku would just like he throws like a trident of flame right at the head of the Nomu. It would turn back screeching at Deku, but he would land on it, grab the head of the Nomu, and like black flames would just like shoot out of the Nomu's like cranium, as he would just completely burn him, just like Endeavor would do in the Hosu City incident when he would have ended up killing one of the Nomus, and the Nomu would just fall down onto the ground. As Izuku would ask like the lady and her kids, he's like, "Are you guys okay?" And like the lady would be like, "You're a hero," and Deku would say, "No, I'm just doing my job." As yeah, right after that would end up going down, Like that's basically all that happens. The Hosu City incident would actually go by smoothly, and if not for the fact that Endeavor was actually there at Hosu, I'm not gonna lie, like normally without Deku there, Stain kills Ida 100% of the time. Like it's not even up for debate. Without Deku's presence being there, Ida just dies, bro. Like I ain't gonna lie to y'all. But yeah, right after all of that stuff ends up happening, we then jump back into the classroom where everybody would sort of be told about the forest training camp arc as well as their final exams. And the final exams is like kind of an interesting thing to talk about because it's not like there is actually any stakes in this section of the story. So we're going to be skipping that. Just know Deku does pass. This time around, however, he doesn't actually get paired up against All Might, considering that Deku doesn't have the problems that he had with Bakugo. Instead, Deku would actually end up being paired up with Todoroki because he has problems working with him. And not only that, I think it'd be a lot cooler considering that him and Todoroki both are heavily reliant on their quirks. And this is a moment where I think we could have a little bit of character development for Deku. Since here, Deku and Todoroki would try to do their best to keep up with Aizawa, but considering the fact that both of them without their quirks are absolutely going to get bodied by Aizawa, I'm going to say that Aizawa would actually end up beating the both of them. And so Izuku has to go on the remedial training course in the forest exam. Looks like having a powerful quirk doesn't always come in handy, especially not when you're against somebody up against somebody like Aizawa. And even though Deku is good at hand-to-hand combat, he's not on Aizawa's level. He doesn't have any weapons. He absolutely got fodderized. And yeah, right after this would happen, we would end up getting the forest training camp arc, where here everything goes the same as it does in canon. I literally mean everything. Like Class 1B arrives, Deku would end up learning about Koda, and all of those things would end up going down just like they do in canon, with Deku realizing oh dang, Koda lost his parents. Eventually on the I think it was the 3rd or 4th day of the training camp exercise camp or whatever, Deku would have actually ended up noticing Koda walking off. And it would be here that Deku would just follow the kid, being I want to talk to him. I may not relate to him all the way because I have my parents, but I sort of get what he's going through. I basically grew up without a dad, and my mom went to a psychiatric ward, so I guess if anyone can talk to this kid, it'd probably be me. So Deku would chase after Koda, slowly, obviously. He's not running after him. He's just walking behind him, and he would then find Koda just straight up crying. He was just weeping, right? And Deku would just be hearing things as Koda just throws a rock into off the mountainside, and Deku was just there listening to what Koda was thinking about and crying, right? But it would be when suddenly Deku would notice a masked, caped figure coming from the distance, and Deku turning towards that direction would realize that it's Muscular. As it'd be in this moment that Izuku would jump in the way and reveal himself that he was there too, as Muscular would have been huh, looks like I got some easy pickings. But Deku in this moment, right before Muscular was about to crush him with his hand, because mind you, Koda's a little kid, and usually in anime when kids get scared, they sort of just stand still like deers in headlights. So he was about to get completely killed by one of Muscular's punches, but Deku would jump in the way, shooting flames at the direction of Muscular, sending him flying back, as he would grab onto Koda and immediately just activate his wings, as he's I gotta take you to safety before I can destroy this guy. But it'd be in this moment that Muscular was having none of it, bro. He literally jumped off of there. He's where are you going, kid? Grabbing onto the leg of Izuku just barely, as Deku would be flying up in the sky, grabbing Koda, mind you, and Muscular would just be looking at him as his muscles begin expanding more and more and more, and he would say, "We're not done here."